Guys, James here from Legacy Levers, and just wanted to make a short video, as short as possible, about two things. Firstly, my sign. Some of you may have seen my sign in social media and what have you at the March Against Xenophobia in Durban, which was yesterday, the 16th of April. And I know there's a lot of talk on social media. I've been talking about it a lot in my newsletter, on my blogs, on social media, etc. So forgive me if you're over it, but it's in me. I'm passionate. I love this nation, and I just want to express myself a little bit. So I just want to make 2 points. Firstly, I've seen a couple of people asking, why on earth would you put a poster like that and put a poster like that up at a march against xenophobia? Well, as you can see, it says, I acknowledge that I am previously and currently privileged. How can I help you to end this violence? Okay, so what does that have to do with xenophobia? Well, I know directly it may not have much to do with xenophobia, but what I can tell you is the reason why I put that phrase together is because I understand that a lot of the xenophobia is being carried out by individuals who come from very broken homes, very poor backgrounds, very poor upbringings, without education, without mothers, fathers, with very little opportunity. And their upbringing has caused them to be angry people, and those angry people are carrying out much of the xenophobia. Why have they been brought up that way? I can tell you right now, it is directly linked to apartheid. And I know us whites are sick and tired of hearing it's because of apartheid. It's because of apartheid, okay? Yes, politicians shouldn't blame apartheid all the time, but what whites need to understand is how deep the hurts of apartheid actually go. And so for the rest of my life, as a white person in South Africa, I will have to live apologetically for apartheid, even though I had nothing to do with it. The fact is, I'm privileged because I was not disadvantaged back then. I come from a privileged background. We had access to the resources because we were white, and so I was able to be educated properly, have a good family, etc., etc. And so that is why at a peace march, I wanted to bring a message like that, which is actually to the perpetrators of xenophobia, to say, hey, perpetrators, I recognize that I'm privileged. I recognize that I have something to offer. How can I help you? What can we do to help, to prevent this from happening? Come on, let's work together, acknowledge our past, acknowledge our differences, let's work together. So that's just a brief overview as to why I made that sign. Maybe I'll go into it a little bit later in another video or a blog post at another time. Okay, so the next thing and the second thing I want to talk about in this video is the Rwanda genocide story, which is in The Star today, Friday, the 16th of April, 2015. The Star are leading with this story here, Heed Rwanda Genocide. I want to say right now, this is classic fear-mongering. It is not propaganda, okay? They're not trying to convince us of anything, or they're not trying to brainwash us, but it's just downright fear-mongering. Some journalists, and I don't want to name names, I haven't even looked up the name, but some journalists, some author, reporter is trying to make a name for themselves and get this story published on the front page, trying to be clever. That's the bottom line, because they know that fear sells. Fear sells newspapers. That made me pick it up. It's a photo I took of the front page of The Star in Checkers today. And that's what happens. That kind of story makes people go, whoa, they want to read it, they put it, they go buy it, right? More readers equals more sales equals better advertising rates. So it's just fear sells. That's what we buy into, friends, and we have to be so careful. And so what I want to do is just point out that really is pure fear-mongering. It is not based on fact. Let's have a look at just some facts. Just 3 facts which prove that this is not in any way the same as the Rwandan genocide of 1994. Number 1, the Rwandan genocide was between 2 tribes, the Hutus and the Tutsis, okay? South Africa is a melting pot of cultures, and primarily what's going on right now is a lot of very minority fringe group of Zulus. Not all perpetrators are Zulu, but many of them are. A very close friend of mine is a Zulu, Dumi Mbona, from the Zulu hills of KwaZulu-Natal, so he knows his Zulu history, and he'll tell you it is quite a few Zulus who are involved in perpetrating it, but it's not all. The majority of Zulus were marching with me yesterday, and they are against xenophobia. But so it's Zulus primarily versus African nationals from other countries, foreign nationals, Congolese, Zimbabweans, Malawians, who else? Maybe a few Kenyans, a lot of Middle Eastern people, actually, Pakistanis, Saudi Arabians, etc., etc. So it's completely different. And the two tribes, the Hutus and the Tutsis, had a very deep history of conflict. We don't have that kind of history. South Africa do not have the history of Zulus and blacks in general against the foreign nationals, or South African tribes against the foreign nationals. The Zulu tribes historically were a little bit more aggressive. Shaka Zulu was a very successful warrior, but it's not an ingrained thing. The tribes have grown to live with one another, and it's not an ingrained difference and clash and conflict as the two tribes of Rwanda. Now, if it were the blacks up against the whites, or even the Afrikaners, the Zulus against the Afrikaners now, trying to inspire hatred against the Afrikaners, I might understand, but it's not. It's actually not. That's the bottom line. It's completely different. The Rwandan genocide was between two tribes, and historically they were in a lot of conflict. Okay, what's going on in South Africa is not between two tribes. It's between many different people, and it's really it's just different. It really is a completely different scenario. Second thing is, so if you don't believe me about the first one, let's have a look at the second one. The second difference is the Rwandan genocide of 1994 was inspired by high-rank politicians. Literally, the politicians in power of Rwanda at the time were disseminating information, trying to stir up hatred from the Hutus towards the Tutsis, and this caused Tutsis and some of the leaders to go out and start this mass murder. And they actually thought they were doing the nation a favor by wiping out the population. It was like an ethnic cleansing the Hutus believed they were doing. They were cleansing Rwanda of the Tutsis. It's a shocking thing. It's a shocking mindset. We don't have that same mindset, and it is not coming from high-ranking politicians. I can tell you right now, from the ANC to the IFP to the NFP to the DA to who else, the IMF, you name it, the politicians in South Africa, the EFF, the politicians in South Africa are against xenophobia. King Goodwill Zwelithini made a comment which some fringe lunatics have taken out of context, and they have sparked this outrage against foreign nationals. But King Goodwill Zwelithini is not sitting in his office, in his throne room, in his palace, passing down information to all his politicians saying, come on guys, let's wipe out the foreign nationals. He's not saying that. He made very irresponsible remarks in a lazy position. It was not strategized. It's completely different to what happened in 1994 in Rwanda. And finally, there was no modern technology in 1994 Rwanda like there is today, i.e. there was no internet. Today, we have the internet. We have cell towers all over South Africa. The communication channels are completely different. If there were these kind of genocidal, mass murder, what's the word? Mass murder intentions from such perpetrators, it would not take long for people to get out of there, for people to evacuate, for aid to come in, for authorities to come in and rescue people before they got wiped out. And that's already what's happened. We've seen 5 people die, 5 foreign nationals die in Durban. Durban is a population of 3 million people. Remember that, 5 people. Okay, yes, those are 5 precious souls, and I've said this before, they are precious souls, and our hearts go out to their families. But 5 people over a week is very different to approximately 750,000 Tutsis died in 100 days. Divide that up. Divide 750,000 by 100. It's like, what is it? I think it's 7,500 I think it's 75,000 people a day. It's completely different, right? So, and the reason was there was no internet, no telephone lines. People were stuck. They were hiding in their homes. They didn't know what was happening, who was coming. Trust me, today it would be completely different. Okay, so look, that's just a brief overview. It was in my heart. I had to share this right here, right now. That's just some points and thoughts I had to make. I just had to call out the Star on this terrible front page. They've gone with pictures of tear gas in the march. I was right there on that road. I didn't even see this happening. This was literally isolated incidents. But this is the stuff that sells. This is where the photographers wanted to be, where there was action going on, where people were in trouble, where people were running, where there was panic. That's what sells, friends. And I just had to make note of that. I'm disappointed in the Star. Bottom line, I'm sorry, Star. You know, editors, you've got to admit, you guys know that fear sells. It sells your newspapers. Let's be real here, folks. So there we go. Please, be responsible in what you share on social media. Be careful what you say. We should not be fearful people, because fear will perpetuate the cycle. I'm telling you now. Mozambique has flared up. A little bit of xenophobia in Mozambique, where Mozambicans are attacking South Africans. You know why? Because the media has so blown up in South Africa what's going on that it's fed over to Mozambican news agencies, and they are flaring it up, and they are taking it out of context because we've taken out of context, and now the Mozambicans are against the South Africans. We have to be so careful what we share, because it will perpetuate the cycle. Let's be positive, South Africa. This is the legacy. This is how we leave a legacy. The first way to start is just by being positive about your country. There may be realities, but let's talk about those in a debate form, not on Facebook and say, there's this reality and this government's not doing enough. No. Let's just be calm and be objective in how we share our thoughts on this amazing and beautiful nation. This is James Preston for Legacy Leavers, wishing you a very, very blessed week, and I really hope that you can see the best for this amazing nation. South Africa, I love you.